The Dying Light. The first time Dr. Elena Vasquez heard the voice of a dying world, she was sitting in her cramped office at the Kepler Research Station, nursing her third cup of coffee and reviewing data from the latest deep space surveys. The transmission came through at 0347 hours, ship time, cutting through the usual background noise of cosmic radiation and stellar interference. To any who can hear this message, the voice said, translated through the Universal Communication Protocols, this is Kiravel of the Varadi Republic. Our star is dying. Our world is dying. We are dying. Elena nearly dropped her coffee. In 15 years of xenobiological research, she had never heard such raw desperation in an alien voice. The Varadi were known throughout the galaxy as one of the most peaceful species ever encountered. Their entire planet, Lumina, was famous for its bioluminescent forests and crystal-clear oceans. The Varadi themselves were beautiful beings, their skin naturally glowing with soft, changing colors that reflected their emotions. The cosmic radiation storm that engulfs our system grows stronger each day. Kiravel continued. Our protective atmosphere is failing. Our people are falling sick. We have perhaps 30 days before our world becomes uninhabitable. We have sent this message to every known civilization in the galaxy. We do not ask for charity. We ask only for help in evacuating our people. We can offer our knowledge, our art, our friendship in return. Please, anyone help us. Elena immediately forwarded the message to Earth's Xenobiological Council and began analyzing the data packet that came with the transmission. The numbers were staggering. 2 million Varadi lived on Lumina. The radiation storm was indeed growing stronger, and their estimates were optimistic. They had maybe 3 weeks, not 30 days. Within hours, responses began pouring in from across the galaxy. Elena watched in growing horror as each major civilization sent their regrets. The Gemini Council, the most powerful military force in known space, sent a formal response through diplomatic channels. While the hegemony sympathizes with the plight of the Varadi people, our current resource allocation does not permit large-scale evacuation operations. We wish them well in their time of need. The ethereal dominion, beings of pure energy who commanded vast fleets of ships, was more direct. The dominion maintains strict non-interference protocols. We cannot intervene in natural cosmic phenomena. The crystalline collective, Masters of Trade and Commerce, provided a detailed economic analysis. The cost of evacuating 2 million beings across interstellar distances would exceed the gross domestic product of 12 member worlds. Such an operation is economically unfeasible. The Void Walkers, ancient artificial intelligences that had outlived their creators, simply ignored the message entirely. Elena stared at her screen in disbelief. These were the great powers of the galaxy, civilizations that commanded resources beyond imagination, and they were all saying no. They were going to let 2 million innocent beings die because it was inconvenient, expensive, or against their policies. She thought about the Varadi she had met during her research expeditions. They were gentle, curious people who had never harmed anyone. Their cities were works of art, their music could make you cry with its beauty, and their children played games that promoted cooperation and understanding. They were everything that was good about intelligent life in the universe. 3 days later, Elena stood before the United Earth Assembly in Geneva, her hands shaking slightly as she addressed the representatives of her species. The chamber was packed, and she could feel the weight of their attention. Members of the Assembly, she began, we face a moral crisis that will define humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. The Varadi people are dying, and every major civilization has turned their backs on them. We are being asked to be the conscience of the galaxy. Representative Johnson from the North American Union raised his hand. Dr. Vasquez, while we all sympathize with the Varadi situation, we must consider the practical aspects. Our entire fleet consists of 27 ships. The logistics of evacuating 2 million beings across 300 light-years of space are overwhelming. I understand the challenges, Elena replied, but I also understand something else. The Varadi helped us when we needed it. 5 years ago, When the plague struck our colonies in the Centauri system, the Virati were the first to offer aid. They shared their medical knowledge freely, asking for nothing in return. They saved over 50,000 human lives. She paused, looking around the chamber. But even if they hadn't helped us, even if we had never met them before, would that change what we should do? We're talking about 2 million lives, 2 million beings who love their families, who create art, who dream of better tomorrows. Are we going to let them die because it's difficult? Because it's expensive? Because we're afraid? The debate that followed lasted 18 hours. Representatives argued about military capacity, economic costs, and potential political ramifications. Some worried that attempting such a massive rescue operation would expose humanity's weaknesses to hostile alien powers. Others pointed out that Earth's resources were already stretched thin maintaining their existing colonies, but slowly the tide began to turn. Stories emerged of individual Virati who had helped human researchers, traders, and diplomats over the years. Representatives spoke of their own encounters with Virati art, music, and philosophy. The Virati had touched human hearts in ways that transcended species boundaries. Captain Marcus Chun, commander of the Earth Fleet, addressed the assembly during the final hours of debate. He was a lean man with graying hair and tired eyes, someone who had seen too much of the galaxy's cruelties. "I've been a soldier for 30 years," he said. "I've fought pirates, defended colonies, and enforced trade agreements. But I've never been asked to do something like this. The Virati evacuation would require every ship in our fleet, every available pilot, and resources we don't have to spare. It would push our people to their limits and beyond." He paused, his expression growing determined. "It would also be the most important thing we've ever done. Not because of strategic advantage or economic gain, but because it's right. Because when innocent people are dying and you have the power to help, you help. That's what makes us human." The vote was closer than Elena had hoped, but it passed. Earth would attempt the impossible. They would try to evacuate 2 million Virati from their dying world using a fleet designed for exploration and trade. Not mass evacuation. As the assembly dispersed, Elena found herself in a private meeting with Captain Chen and the other fleet commanders. The logistics were indeed staggering. Even if they converted every available ship, they could only evacuate about 50,000 Virati at a time. That meant 40-round trips, each taking weeks to complete. "We don't have weeks," Chen said grimly. "According to the latest data from Lumina, the radiation storm is accelerating. We have maybe one shot at this." Commander Sarah Rodriguez, head of the Earth Marines, leaned forward. "What if we don't try to evacuate them in small groups? What if we modify our ships to carry more people?" "Modify them how?" asked Captain Chen. "Strip out everything non-essential. Weapons, luxury quarters, recreational facilities. Convert cargo bays to passenger compartments. Push our life support systems to their absolute limits." Elena pulled up the technical specifications. "Even if we do that, we're still looking at maybe 200,000 per trip. We'd need at least 10 trips, and we just don't have the time." A young engineer named Tommy O'Brien, who had been quietly working on his tablet, suddenly looked up. "What if we don't bring them all the way back to Earth? What if we set up a temporary refuge in space?" The room fell silent. Tommy continued, his excitement growing as he spoke. "There's an asteroid field about halfway between Lumina and Earth. We could establish a temporary base there, use our industrial ships to hollow out some of the larger asteroids. It would give us time to make multiple trips without the full journey each time." Captain Chin studied the proposal. "It's risky. We'd be asking the Virati to trust us with their lives, betting everything on untested technology and improvised solutions. Everything we're doing is untested," Elena pointed out. "No one has ever attempted an evacuation on this scale. But that's exactly why it has to be us. The other civilizations won't try because they're afraid of failure. We'll try because we're too stubborn to give up." 3 days later, the Earth fleet launched from Luna Base. 15 ships, hastily converted for passenger transport, carrying every available engineer, medical officer, and volunteer. They were heading into the unknown, attempting something that every expert said was impossible. As the fleet entered hyperspace, Elena stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the stars stretch into lines of light. She thought about Kiravel, the young Varadi scientist whose desperate message had started this whole chain of events. She thought about the 2 million lives depending on them and the civilizations that had turned away. Captain Chen joined her at the observation deck. Second thoughts, he asked. No, Elena said firmly. For the first time in days, I know we're doing the right thing. Win or lose, we're going to show the galaxy what it means to be human. The journey to Lumina took 6 days, the longest 6 days of Elena's life. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Varadi system, the first thing they saw was the radiation storm. It was beautiful and terrible, a swirling mass of charged particles and electromagnetic energy that had engulfed the system's star. The star itself was barely visible through the cosmic maelstrom, its light flickering like a dying candle. Lumina hung in space like a jewel losing its luster. The planet's famous bioluminescent glow was fading, visible only in patches across the continents. The Varadi cities, once blazing with organic light, now appeared as dim embers scattered across the darkening world. My God, whispered Captain Chun, we're almost too late. The first transmission from the planet came within minutes of their arrival. It was Kiravel, but her voice was different now, weaker, filled with disbelief and desperate hope. Human ships, she said, is it really you? Are you here to help us? Elena took the communications console. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez of the Earth Research Council. We're here to get you out. All of you. We're going to need your help, and we're going to need to work fast, but we're not leaving without you. There was a long pause, then Kiravel's voice came back, thick with emotion. The galaxy told us we were alone. The galaxy told us no one would come. But humans came. Thank you. Thank you for not letting us die alone. As the Earth fleet moved into orbit around Lumina, Elena realized that this was only the beginning. The real test was about to start, and failure wasn't an option. 2 million lives depended on them proving that sometimes the right thing to do was also the possible thing to do. The evacuation of Lumina was about to begin, and humanity was about to show the galaxy what it meant to never leave anyone behind. Against all odds, the first shuttles launched from the Earth fleet 12 hours after their arrival at Lumina. Elena watched from the command bridge as the small craft descended through the planet's weakening atmosphere, their heat shields glowing against the backdrop of a dying world. The radiation readings were worse than expected, forcing the pilots to take longer, more dangerous routes to avoid the worst of the cosmic storm. Captain Chin stood beside her, his face grim as he studied the tactical displays. We're getting interference from the radiation storm, he reported. Communication with the surface is spotty at best, and our shields are already showing strain. Elena nodded, her attention focused on the video feed from the lead shuttle. The pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, was one of their best, but even she was struggling with the turbulent atmospheric conditions. How are our modifications holding up? Elena asked. Better than expected, replied Tommy O'Brien, the young engineer who had proposed the asteroid refuge plan. We've managed to increase passenger capacity by 300%, but it's going to be cramped. Really cramped. The first shuttle touched down in the capital city of Velthera, once the crown jewel of Varadi civilization. Through the grainy video feed, Elena could see the devastation. The bioluminescent trees that had once lined the streets were dark and withered. The crystal spires that had reached toward the sky, like frozen music, were cracked and dim. But the Varadi were there, waiting. They moved with the grace that had made them famous throughout the galaxy, but Elena could see the weakness in their movements. The radiation was killing them slowly, draining the life from their naturally glowing bodies. Children stayed close to their parents, their small forms flickering like dying stars. Elderly Varadi were carried by family members, their light so faint it was barely visible. Kiravel met the shuttle personally, her own bioluminescence reduced to a soft blue glow around her elongated limbs. She was taller than most humans, with 4 arms and large, multifaceted eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. When she spoke, her voice carried the musical quality that was characteristic of her people. Dr. Vasquez, she said through the communication link, I cannot express our gratitude. We had given up hope. Save the gratitude, Elena replied. We have work to do. How many are ready for the first transport? 50,000 in this city alone. We've gathered the most vulnerable first, the children, the elderly, the sick. But I must tell you, the situation is worse than we reported. The radiation storm is accelerating. Our scientists estimate we have 18 days, perhaps less. Elena felt her heart sink. Their original plan had accounted for 25 days. Understood. We'll adapt. We always do. The loading process was a marvel of organized chaos. The Verati had prepared for this moment, organizing their people into groups, prioritizing the most vulnerable. Human crew members worked alongside Verati volunteers, using universal translators and hand signals to coordinate the massive undertaking. Elena watched as families said goodbye to loved ones, not knowing if they would see each other again. A young Verati child, her name was Niravan, clung to her father's lower arm as he prepared to board the shuttle. She was maybe 8 years old in human terms, her body glowing with the soft green light of youth and fear. Papa, she said in accented English, where are the humans taking us? Her father, a tall Verati named Drenkar, knelt down to her level. To safety, little star. The humans are taking us to safety. But why? Niravan asked. Why are they helping us? The others said no one would come. Drenkar looked up at Elena, who was monitoring the loading process from the shuttle's cargo bay. Because he said slowly, some people believe that all life is precious, even if that life is different from their own. Elena felt tears welling up in her eyes. She had studied dozens of alien species, but the Verati's capacity for trust and gratitude in the face of extinction was unlike anything she had encountered. The first wave of evacuations went smoothly. The converted cargo ships, now packed with Verati refugees, made the journey to the asteroid field where Tommy O'Brien's team had been working around the clock to establish temporary shelters. The asteroids were being hollowed out using mining equipment, creating pressurized environments where the Verati could wait safely while the evacuation continued. But as the second wave of shuttles prepared to launch, everything went wrong. The proximity alarms on the fleet's command ship began blaring. Captain Chen rushed to the sensor station, his face pale as he read the displays. We've got company, he announced. 3 ships, unknown configuration, approaching fast. Elena joined him at the sensors. The ships were large, heavily armed, and moving with predatory precision. Are they responding to our hails? Negative. They're maintaining radio silence. And wait, Chen's expression darkened. I recognize that ship configuration. Scarith Raiders. Elena's blood ran cold. The Scarith were opportunistic scavengers who followed disaster like vultures. They were known throughout the galaxy for their willingness to exploit others' misfortune, often arriving at disaster sites to loot whatever they could find. They're here for the Verati technology, Chen continued. With the planet dying, they probably figure they can strip whatever they want without resistance. Can we fight them? Elena asked. Chen shook his head. Our ships are converted for passenger transport. We stripped out most of our weapons to make room for refugees. We've got maybe 10% of our normal combat capability. The lead Scarith ship, a massive vessel covered in salvaged armor plating, opened a communication channel. The face that appeared on the screen was reptilian, with cold yellow eyes and scarred scales. This was Warlord Vex, one of the most notorious Scarith leaders. Human vessels, Vex hissed, his voice like grinding metal. You are trespassing in a salvage zone. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Captain Chen stepped forward. This is Captain Marcus Chen of the Earth Fleet. We're conducting a humanitarian evacuation under galactic law. You have no authority here. Vex laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Humanitarian? You mean profitable. The Verati have valuable technology, and we were here first. Leave now, or we'll take what we want from your ships as well. Elena moved to the communication console. Warlord Vex, we're not here for profit. We're here to save lives. The Verati are dying. If you have any decency, Vex interrupted. Little human, decency is a luxury the galaxy cannot afford. You have 10 minutes to withdraw. The channel closed, leaving the human fleet facing an impossible choice. They could fight, but with their reduced capabilities, they would likely lose. They could retreat, but that would mean abandoning the Verati to both the radiation storm and the Scarith Raiders. Or they could continue the evacuation and hope for a miracle. Elena looked at Captain Chun. What are our options? We could try to outrun them, Chun said. Get as many Verati as possible and make for the edge of the system. How many could we save? Maybe 200,000. 500,000 if we're lucky. Elena felt sick. That leaves over 1 million people to die. Commander Sarah Rodriguez, who had been listening to the conversation, stepped forward. There's another option. We could split our forces. Most of the fleet continues the evacuation while a small group tries to delay the Scarith. A suicide mission, Chin said bluntly. Maybe, Rodriguez replied, but it would buy us time. And time is what we need most. Tommy O'Brien, who had been working frantically at his engineering station, suddenly looked up. What if we don't fight them head-on? What if we use their own greed against them? What do you mean? Elena asked. The Scarith are here for Verati technology, right? What if we gave them something even better to chase? What if we made them think there was a bigger prize somewhere else? Chin frowned. Such as the radiation storm, Tommy said excitedly. It's not just destroying the system, it's also creating unique energy patterns. If we could convince the Scarith that there's something valuable at the center of the storm, something worth more than looting a dying planet, they'd leave us alone to go after it, Elena finished. But how do we convince them? We fake a discovery, Tommy continued. Send out a deep space probe that transmits data about a massive energy source in the heart of the storm. Make it look like we stumbled onto something incredible and are trying to keep it secret. Captain Chin considered the plan. It's risky. If they don't buy it, we're back to square one. And if they do buy it but figure out it's a fake, they'll be angry, Elena said. But they'll also be far away, chasing ghosts in a radiation storm that would kill them anyway. Rodriguez nodded. I like it. It's crazy enough to work, and it doesn't require us to sacrifice anyone. Over the next few hours, Tommy and his team worked to modify a deep space probe, programming it to transmit false data about a mysterious energy source deep within the radiation storm. The probe would make it appear that the humans had discovered something extraordinary, something that made the Verati evacuation look like a cover story. Meanwhile, the evacuation continued. Shuttle after shuttle lifted off from Lumina's surface, carrying precious cargo to the asteroid shelters. The Verati worked with quiet efficiency, understanding that their survival depended on speed and cooperation. Elena spent most of her time coordinating between the surface teams and the fleet, but she found herself returning again and again to the medical bay, where the most vulnerable Verati were being treated. The radiation had taken a terrible toll on their people, and many were too weak to survive the journey without medical intervention. Dr. James Patterson, the fleet's chief medical officer, was working with a team of Verati healers to adapt human medical technology to Verati biology. It was improvised medicine at its finest, using techniques that had never been tested on their species. How are they doing? Elena asked as she watched a young Verati being treated for radiation poisoning. Better than expected, Patterson replied. Their biology is more resilient than we thought. The bioluminescence isn't just for show, it's actually part of their immune system. The radiation is damaging it, but if we can get them away from the source, they should recover. Elena felt a surge of hope. All of them? Most of them. The children especially. They're incredibly tough for beings that look so fragile. The probe was launched 6 hours after the Scarith arrival. Tommy had programmed it to send back data that would look like a massive energy signature, something that would appear to be of incredible value to scavengers like the Scarith. The probe dove deep into the radiation storm, transmitting its false data until it was destroyed by the cosmic forces, but the bait worked. Within an hour, the Scarith fleet changed course, racing toward the heart of the radiation storm in pursuit of what they believed was a priceless discovery. Warlord Vec's final transmission was filled with greedy excitement as he ordered his ships to follow the probe's trail. "Clever humans," he hissed. "You thought you could hide your discovery from us. But we will claim this prize, and then we will return for you." Elena watched the Scarith ships disappear into the swirling chaos of the radiation storm, knowing that they would never emerge. The storm was too powerful, too chaotic for even heavily armed raiders to survive. In their greed, they had chosen their own destruction. With the Scarith threat eliminated, the evacuation continued in earnest. The human fleet worked around the clock, pushing their ships and their people to the absolute limit. Engineers like Tommy O'Brien performed miracles, keeping the overloaded vessels functioning despite conditions they were never designed to handle. The Verati, for their part, showed remarkable courage and organization. They had faced the end of their world with dignity, and they faced their rescue with gratitude that moved even the most hardened human crew members. As the last shuttle lifted off from Lumina, carrying the final group of Verati refugees, Elena stood on the bridge, watching the dying planet fall away beneath them. The radiation storm had grown stronger, and the planet's bioluminescent glow was now completely extinguished. Lumina was dead, but its people lived on. Final count, Captain Chun reported, 1,800,000 Verati evacuated. We lost about 200,000 to the radiation before we could reach them, but we saved everyone we could. Elena felt a mixture of triumph and sorrow. They had achieved the impossible, but the cost had been high. The Verati had lost their world, their history, everything they had built over millennia, but they had their lives, and they had hoped. Kiravel, who had been on the last shuttle, joined Elena on the bridge. Her bioluminescence was stronger now, away from the radiation, and her forearms moved in what Elena had learned was a gesture of deep gratitude. "Dr. Vasquez," she said, "my people and I owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You have given us something more precious than our lives. You have given us a future." Elena smiled, feeling exhausted but proud. "We did what anyone should do. We helped people in need." "No," Kiravel replied softly. "You did what humans do. You chose to care about strangers. You chose to risk everything for people you barely knew. That is not common in the galaxy, Dr. Vasquez. That is rare and precious." As the Earth fleet began its journey back to human space, carrying nearly 2 million Verati refugees, Elena realized that they had done more than save lives. They had demonstrated something important about humanity, something that would echo throughout the galaxy for generations to come. They had shown that sometimes the right thing to do was also the possible thing to do. You just had to be willing to try. The light that never dies. The journey back to human space took 2 weeks. 2 weeks, during which Elena Vasquez watched something extraordinary happen. The Verati refugees, crowded into ships never designed for passenger transport, didn't just survive the journey. They began to thrive. The converted cargo holds of the Earth fleet, temporary communities formed. Verati families shared their stories with human crew members, teaching them about their lost world while learning about Earth. Children from both species played together, their laughter echoing through the ship's corridors despite the cramped conditions. Elena found herself spending most of her time in these improvised communities, documenting what she was witnessing. The Verati were not just refugees, they were teachers, artists, scientists, and philosophers. Their knowledge of bioluminescent technology was centuries ahead of human understanding, but they shared it freely, grateful for the chance to contribute to their own survival. Tommy O'Brien, the young engineer who had helped save them all, was working closely with a group of Verati scientists to improve the life support systems. The collaboration was remarkable, human ingenuity combined with Verati biological expertise to create solutions neither species could have achieved alone. "Look at this," Tommy said, showing Elena a bioluminescent panel that now provided both light and air purification. "The Verati grow these organisms that can process carbon dioxide, more efficiently than our mechanical systems. We're literally breathing easier because of them. Elena smiled, but her attention was drawn to a commotion near the communication center. Captain Chun was standing before a crowd of both human and Verati crew members, his face grave as he read from a message pad. "What's happening?" Elena asked. "News from Earth," Chun replied. "Word of our mission has spread throughout the galaxy. The response has been significant." He handed her the message pad. Elena read quickly, her eyes widening with each line. The evacuation of Lumina had become the biggest story in galactic news. The fact that humanity, the youngest and seemingly weakest member of the galactic community, had succeeded where the great powers had refused to try was sending shockwaves through established political structures. The Hegemony Council is claiming they were preparing their own rescue mission, Chun continued. The Ethereal Dominion is suddenly interested in establishing formal diplomatic relations with both humanity and the Verati. Even the Crystalline Collective is offering to fund refugee resettlement programs. Elena felt a surge of anger. Where were they when the Verati were dying? Kiravel, who had been listening to the conversation, moved closer. Her bioluminescence had returned to full strength during the journey, and she now glowed with the soft blue light that indicated deep thought among her people. "Dr. Vasquez," she said, "this is not unexpected. The galaxy operates on power and precedent. We were powerless, so we were ignored. But now, because of what you have done, we are no longer powerless. And neither are you." Elena frowned. "What do you mean?" "Your species has changed the equation," Kiravel explained. "You have shown that moral authority can be more powerful than military might. Every species in the galaxy is now asking themselves why they didn't act, and they don't like the answer they're finding." Over the following days, more messages arrived. The Galactic Council, the loose governing body that coordinated interstellar relations, was calling for an emergency session. The topic, the establishment of new protocols for humanitarian crises. Elena found herself appointed as Earth's representative to the Council, a position that would have been unthinkable just weeks earlier. Humanity had been a minor player in galactic politics, respected for their resilience, but dismissed as naive idealists. Now, they were being invited to help reshape the galaxy's moral framework.